This is a show about facing fear, unlocking courage, and taking action.
Courage isn't necessarily a daunting thing.
It's going to give you more purpose. It's going to give you more drive.
It feels like making a courageous decision is going to get you closer to who you aspire to be.
It's knowledge plus faith plus action equals courage.
When you're a creative and you get to see and understand that your work has meaning rather than, oh, I just made this thing. I don't know how it's doing. You want to know that the thing you made is actually impacting. Once you hit that level, sky's the limit with what you can do, and you're going to go places.
If I took a time machine ride back 20 some years ago and I landed in this foreign land where nobody gave a shit about bagels and, people were up early. It was this weird upside down world that I had landed in. And you go from a place where there's noise on every corner, and next thing you know, you're in San Diego. And I felt like a foreigner. I felt like, in some ways, I kind of felt like the streets are paved with gold in San Diego. This is an amazing place, and I'm going to figure it out. And I'm the first one here, and I'm a pioneer, and here comes this East Coaster. And then I learned about this company called Holiday Matinee. And I'm like, wait a minute, there's somebody else who likes bagels and talks like me and can complain like me, and is from New York. And someone's like, you need to go meet Dave Brown. He's been here way longer than you. Go find Dave Brown. And I remember, and again, it's kind of funny how the world works and how we all stage and age is real. But my guest today, Dave Brown, I think you're kind of the OG pioneer of someone that was curious enough to do New York and then to somehow fumble in San Diego, which I want to hear that story, by the way. And I totally remember Holiday Matinee, and it was just this badass, energetic. It's funny. I describe Dave courageous as a platform of positivity and possibility, and I actually think back to what you were doing, that kind of almost was the same idea. That's what I felt from you. So first of all, it's great to see you, man. But how you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing great, man. Thanks so much for having me on and the kind words. And yeah, I'm excited to dig into it. Let's go.
All right. So, one, how the hell did you get out here? How did San Diego happen to you? And I should just kind of look, if you're paying attention to the podcast, I'm sure at this point you're aware that Dave is no longer in San Diego. He's back on the East Coast, vice president of creative at Square. You're driving that company's vision. I think we'll get into that a little bit. And I think to my knowledge, there's a lot that comes with that role. There's creativity, there's leadership, there's management, there's juggling. But let's go back to a time when I certainly had more hair in the right places. So why San Diego, and how did you even get here?
Yeah, actually I was pretty young. I had just graduated college in upstate New York. I was 22 years old. And I went to school for sociology. And so while I was studying school, my academic side, which I really loved, I was a gender studies major. I was really interested in, actually had aspirations to become a teacher. That's really what I wanted to do, was teach. My mother has always been a public school teacher her whole life. So I was pretty inspired by that. And I just felt like I had role models that were always teaching. My grandfather was a taxi cab driver in New York City for 35 years as an entrepreneur. So I got to absorb a lot, probably indirectly, some of the entrepreneurial sort of mindset. And so after I graduated college at 22, I had really only known the East Coast my whole life. And I had toured with bands and a lot, and music gave me a great outlet to see a lot of other things and experience a lot of other experiences. And I decided I wanted to go to San Diego because they had a really great grad school program for sociology. And that was my original intention of coming to San Diego. I sold my drum kit for gas money and convinced my roommate at the time, who had a van, to drive me cross country. And he taught me how to drive stick shift, and we drove together out to San Diego. And friend of a friend of a friend knew one person in the Hillcrest neighborhood that had a room in a house with a bunch of people that I could afford for $200 of rent a month, and I could barely cover that first one. So that's how I landed in San Diego. But I was soon after landing in San Diego or arriving there, I was sort of hit with the harsh reality that I couldn't afford tuition as an out-of-state resident. So I said, all right, I'll give myself a grace period of 12 months that'll get me to become a resident of California, in which it would be much cheaper for me to go to school, to grad school. And fortunately and unfortunately, I never looked back. I never went to grad school. Within those 12 months is when I started my own company, and the rest was sort of history.
And school in upstate New York was?
I went to Ithaca College.
As did the host of the Courageous podcast. What?
Many things that connect us here, Ryan.
Right.
That's certainly one of them.
Dare I ask, what year? What year did you get out of there?
I graduated in 98.
Okay, so we're even the same year.
Same year. How crazy is that?
That's ridiculous. Where did you live? Where were you?
So
living?
I spent most of my time on the Cornell side. If those aren't familiar with Ithaca outside of you and I, it's basically a pretty small town. There's run by two rather large universities. On one side of the town is Ithaca College. On the other side of town is Cornell University. I worked a lot of my tenure at Ithaca was working at a video store in College Town on the Cornell campus. Remember those video stores?
Oh yeah, good old days. So you beelined pretty quickly to California, and in the first year that you're out here, when you realize, oh, okay, so I have to figure out how to swim pretty fast. You said you started your own company. Was it sort of like, what else am I going to do? Or did you kind of throw your hands up? Or?
That's a great question. I was already dabbling in quite a few entrepreneurial ventures, like literally from high school on throughout all of college. I had started a magazine, like an underground magazine, and then that grew into like an actual pretty legit publication that in college I had met a really great roommate and friend, Ron Richards from New York, and the two of us decided to do this together, like really step it up and learn the printing process, the editorial. Like we were essentially learning business without really thinking that that's what we were learning, right? We were learning all the mechanics of that, interview skills, interviewing. We started focusing on music, so we just loved music. We would review records and CDs and then interview bands and then go on the road and tour. So we had a business we started, and then the magazine took off. We were selling ads to record labels. We were going distribution channels in Tower Records and Barnes and Nobles and Borders Bookstore. So that really helped, and that was just fueled by passion. We were certainly starting to make some money, but it was it wasn't, no one starts a zine to get in it to make money. You do it because you love this. And so I had that itch always. And then when I moved to San Diego, what was bizarre was I still came from, coming from New York. I imagine you had this sort of similar experience where like you land here in San Diego and all of a sudden everyone's like, oh, we're just going to go to the beach today. We're going to go hang out in PB or OB. And I was like, that's cool, but I kind of want to work because I just love it, and I was hungry to do stuff. And I realized, wow, I had got planted in a part of town, in a community where there was just so many incredible musicians, and they all were really good at what they do, which is what they were meant to do, was play music, but none of them had a clue as to the business side of the house. And for some reason, I just grew up being the guy that like loved going to punk rock shows just as much as I loved watching like CNBC. And I don't know where that came from, to be honest, but like I really felt like I realized right away that I had dabbled in playing in bands myself, but that wasn't for me. I sucked. I was a lot better at helping behind the scenes, at helping folks who had that passion and artistic expertise. And so it was totally organic. I mean, I was working at mailboxes, et cetera, which is like a Kinko's at the time. And I had a roommate drive me to Borders Bookstore down in Mission Beach when it was down there. Or Mission Valley rather. And I would spend all day in the book aisles and magazine aisles reading everything I could about, starting a PR company, what PR even was. And I taught myself design, just, again, had a passion for making t-shirt designs and record covers and photography and all that fun stuff. So that's kind of where, I didn't have a mentor, which I wish I did, to guide me and help me make less mistakes or just give me the tools. It was all sort of that DIY, do-it-yourself mentality of like, I love this. I want to learn everything about it. And the more I absorbed myself and immersed myself in that world, I couldn't get enough. I wanted to learn more and more and more and just like help others get bigger and better at what they did.
I don't know if this will land with you at all, but I also like felt like I didn't have a mentor for a long time. And I also wonder if there's no victim card on this, right? Like I just, except for if I'm going to play it against myself, like I did this to myself, right? So go back to like the amount of times I would be at Ithaca and I'd have to look across the way at Cornell to remind me of how inadequately, like, oh, that's where the smart kids go. We're the scrappy kids. So I guess we'll have to scrap it out. We're gonna have to figure it out, right? And so I think like, that's like the little seed gets planted there, and then I remember coming out here and exactly what you felt like. This was like another language. Someone once said to me from my New York days, in New York, people say "F you," and it means hi. And it's California, people say hi, and it means "F you." And I think it's more. I think that's more LA. It's more LA. But like in New York, if you said you would be somewhere, and it's piled on like 2 feet of snow, you left earlier. And sometimes out here, people are like, well, I'm gonna go surf, and people just do what they feel like. And I felt like I was like you. I loved to work. I was curious. I wanted to keep pushing and seeing where it took me. And by the way, the way you describe yourself to me is what I remember. Like I kind of see you as like this curious, passionate. It was all about the love. It was all about that itch. It wasn't. I never sensed it was like a selfish move either. You were always part of the band. Like I felt like that's who you were. Like you had your band, and if it was, you didn't care if it was like you almost didn't want to be mainstream. You're like underground, and I'll promote it. And like that's what I remember feeling about you. And I think so. You were out here 6 to 8 years before me. So how did you see San Diego change? Like, do you feel like you saw change in those years?
I feel really like grateful to San Diego. Like I feel like it really embraced me or made it like very inviting for me to come out there and experiment with things and try and make a living off of it. And you're right, I was infinitely curious, which is something I've sort of innately been in my DNA, I think, all my life and still to this day. And I'm just attracted to that. And I think San Diego had a lot of artists all around. Like there was musicians, there was designers, there was like clothing folks, there was jewelry people, and then the cultural significance of where San Diego geographically sits and the cultural influences and cross-border culture that is just so infectious. Like just going down to Mexico and like it sounds crazy, but it's like it's so if you're from San Diego, you know how realistic that is, right? Because it's just really close and a train ride away. And so there was just like, I think part of it was like, it was just so new, I think, from what I had grown up with and been socialized with. And it felt really warm and embracing. And like looking back, I probably took advantage of it. Like I didn't think about these things then because I was in my 20s, like mid 20s. Totally. I was like kind of the first time like separated from my family in a significant way for a significant amount of time. And this community of sort of counterculture aesthetic and mixing of business, advertising, design, art, was embracing me. And I just kept wanting to go deeper, and I fell in love with the city and the people there and made a shit ton of mistakes. But I always felt like inspired by everything from like folks like you and like when you did come into town and like it's like, oh my god, this guy's doing like a real proper agency, and like I don't know how to do that, and like what I'm doing is a piece of shit compared to like the legitimacy of what I felt like you were doing. And so a lot.
By the way, this is such a classic case. This is like classic grass is always greener, because I'm like Dave fucking Brown. Yeah. He's like not going to waver on who he is. There's no like this is who he is. This is the type of work he's going to do. Like I felt your identity. Like I felt like you knew who you were. This is who I am, and which I think is really like I'm curious to like skip the rock across the pond. And like, here's Dave, who kind of played in the shadows on purpose. Like, you liked playing. That was who you are. Like, you're going to be at an underground bar. Like, that's where Dave Brown's going to be. And now you take all of that experience of learning from some of these corridors, Mexico, right? Like you said, which is, yes, by the way, we're going to Mexico on Sunday. So it's so normal. We're flying out of Mexico. Like, that's how normal it is, by the way, for us. But now here you are, like, you're at Square, like you're the vice president of creative at Square. And it's like all these pieces that have added up. And now you're back in this other world. So like, how do you feel like all of the curious corners, and by the way, like, yeah, okay, you say you could chalk them up as messy mistakes, but really that's where the good stuff is. Like, that's where the stories are, right? Like, and I'm sure now, I don't want to put words into your mouth. I'll speak for myself. I always look to mentor now because I wish I had somebody like that. But also, like, why wouldn't you help somebody if you, like, of course I'm going to, if someone wants to listen, I'm here to help, right? So, but do you feel that now in your role, you mentor because I wish I had that, it's the right thing to do, all the above?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of all those things, right? Like, it's the compounding effect of experience, ultimately. Like, I feel so lucky that I sort of invested in multiple experiences. This is not to say that there is a right way or wrong way, because who fucking knows, right?
Totally.
My experience is a very non-traditional path, where I like went and started my own business and then ran it for 12 years and then sort of reverse engineered into going into a 9-to-5 working for others. Mostly because I was like kind of tired of like living the paycheck to paycheck and the unknowns, and just was ready for sort of more structure, I think, and stability, and candidly, a more steady paycheck and benefits and those kinds of things. That as I was growing older and having more responsibility, I was seeking out those kinds of things and not feeling ashamed to admit to that, which I think existed in like the earlier days of like punk rock, doing it yourself kind of mentality. It's sort of like, yeah, no one talks about money. It's like, actually now I coach people, it's like, and mentor folks, like, go after it, and don't be ashamed of that. Like, it will open up a lot of doors for you. And the other thing I really enjoyed about it was like, it just felt on brand for me, part of just being curious, right? I wanted to see how the other half lived. And like, I wanted to see what it was like to be like, an independent thinker, but now in a more corporate structure. What is that like? What does it feel like? And then eventually it grew into similar models where, what does it feel like to be a creative in an engineering environment or in a product first environment? And so like going from like a startup like Etsy to then going to an agency side, which I really want to see let me learn the agent. It was all about learning, right? And like filling another like piece of your toolkit, and then it was like, oh, the big boys called. When Microsoft called me and was like interested in me, the compounding influence that I had built up over the years certainly helped me get to even on their radar. So grateful for all the mistakes I made and all the learnings I've had got me to that point. And at that point, it was like, yeah, I knew I never wanted to like settle down in the Pacific Northwest. It was going to be a somewhat temporary thing, but it was all about, let's go and have that experience and learn, and that to me felt like it's only going to make me stronger and more confident. And then I can go and do even more things. But the interesting thing happened, Ryan, which is like, mostly when I got to like, I think it was Edelman, which is a huge PR firm. I love my time there at an agency. And then when I went to Microsoft, I started getting more comfortable in the leadership side of the house, building teams, like really connecting to people, understanding, listening intently, and starting to realize, oh, wow, I can actually spend corporate money on the world I came from, which is like, the independent folks. And man, that feels good. Like anytime you get an opportunity where it's a win-win, you won't just do it selfishly, but like when you do get an opportunity to have the privilege to have a budget to go and spend and at your discretion. And going back, I remember, hiring friends in San Diego when I was at Microsoft at an agency called Grizzly that's still around today, and good friends of ours, and we love them. And bringing them into the Microsoft world was like, so exciting to do. And it's like, here's a whole bunch of money. And now this will open the doors, hopefully, which I think a testament to them and the quality of work that they do. They then got tons more business from that, both from Microsoft and beyond. But that part just felt really rewarding. It was like sort of giving back to the community that I came from while still learning how to be inside of that, machine.
Yeah, and let's give a shout out to Nate Spees and Mr. Gibson. Like those are good people right there, right? And I hear you, you kind of have this sort of Robin Hood, like right here. There's like a Robin Hood effect with you, and because I love that you're a constant learner, but I think, and I can only go off my own, right? So I was the opposite at first. Like I got into corp. I went to big first, right? I didn't know any better. It's the whole duck metaphor, like on the surface, but below the water, you're terrified to drown, right? And I'm trying to remember at 22 or 23, you're in a car to San Diego and your entrepreneurial days start. I felt like I relived college again in New York City. It was like I was getting my, my master's in street smart, but like going into advertising in New York City, like freshman year of New York City was too fast for me. I was just trying not to fail out. I knew where like my one class was, right? Like I wasn't eating anything off campus. And then you'd go home and that's, that kind of is what Ithaca College was for even me, even being as small as it was for my freshman year. Like really stayed out of trouble. Just a sophomore year, still felt like, okay, now I know where my classes are. But by junior year, senior year, then I'm like, all right, I think I've got this thing figured out. 4 years in, like you had already started. The word entrepreneurial was not on my radar then.
Oh yeah. I could tell you, Ryan, my freshman year at college, I was already hustling like ices outside of my dorm window in the summers and like late, right when school started. Yeah, I had it in my blood. I don't know. Again, I credit like my grandfather and like, I think, indirectly, I was certainly heavily influenced without even realizing it. But I had that even going into college. It was like, I already had the tenets of like, that entrepreneurial mindset. And then it only just snowballed when you get to meet other folks who are just doing other stuff and you're inspired and you're motivated. And, and music played a huge role in that time of my life. I was deeply in the indie scene. And there was the DNA of that scene was all about DIY. And like, everyone was like, whatever your thing was, your passion was, like you found a way to make it happen, and so to me, that at some point, it actually felt normal. Like we normalized it. It was like, oh, this actually feels normal. And yeah, I certainly didn't relate to, I guess, other folks who were, and egotistically, I was like, I didn't even care. I was like, oh, you're doing your thing, I'm doing mine, right? Like no harm. And yeah, I don't know. It was just, I also 4 years of Ithaca, as I'm sure you can relate, like you're done. You want to get the fuck out of there. So no surprise guys like us go to San Diego after spending 4 years in upstate New York. It's cold as fuck.
Well, I'll give the PC version of that. It makes you gritty. Like it really is a grit. It's a school. I mean, like I love to play the you're the number one quarterback in high school game. Like, all right, you're the number one quarterback in high school. Where are you going to college? No one ever said Cornell, like from this answer, by the way. Like they're going Texas, right? They're going where it's Florida. Every once in a while, you'll get somebody who says like Ohio State, which I'm like, bullshit. And then it's not even personal Ohio State. It's about weather. So when you think about how entrepreneurial you are, and now you're inside this larger organization at Square, how does that muscle? Because you can't help yourself. You're curious. You're learning. You're listening. Do you know right away when you run into, oh, that's not their fault. They're just like, they've always just been a cog inside and they're a great cog inside a big machine versus, like you might have a conversation with yourself because the entrepreneurial part of your brain is like, why are we doing it this way? This feels, I would not do it this way. Don't say it, Dave. Don't say it, Dave. And then boom, here, like, do you find yourself battling these two worlds?
Not so much anymore. Certainly in the early stages of entering that world. Yeah, absolutely. Right. There's a transition period for sure. And age and experience has a lot to do with that as well. And so where I'm at now, I mean, it feels pretty natural, and I don't fight with it, that tension, really. In fact, sometimes I actually inject it sometimes, and maybe more than I should, but in a playful way, I guess. But it's often grounded in strategy, so like it doesn't come out unless it needs to, and you learn how to handle that. And Square's just been such a great ride. I've been there almost 5 years now, and there weren't many places on my list of where I felt like I wanted to go continue learning and be able to apply what I've learned in my experience too. And that was certainly one of them. Just like the whole company is just like serves up everything we do is for our customers. Like, it's so obsessed with our what we call sellers, folks who are retailers, restaurants, and just people who have dreams to run a business. And the fact that we get to play a hand in helping enable that is pretty cool. Like I feel pretty fortunate with the work I get to do, and a lot of my work is mostly centered around in the hospitality industry with food and beverage. And they're just something deeply personal that around food and community and restaurants that, when I meet folks that you mentioned, like a cog in a wheel kind of thing, not at all, man. Like, again, I think that plays on like my sociology background, where it's like, I just love people and I love exploring their minds and like learning from folks and thinking about, tell me about where did you grow up and how, like, what are your experiences? And like, man, it's just, there's nothing cooler, right? Like, I think if you're closed off to that, that just makes for a shitty experience for everyone. So yeah, I'm enjoying the ride still.
Do you feel that you get to still, you mentioned leadership earlier, like your role has evolved, but do you feel that you get to still flex the creative muscle, or like how does it come to life inside this organization?
Yeah, it kind of comes and goes in cycles, right? There's absolutely trade-offs that you have to make. And when you're in that machine, there's days where and processes and just it is what it is, right? It's like you're fully aware and you get to decide if that's something you want to continue tolerating or not, right? And totally. So like it's no one's forcing me to stay at a company other than myself, right? Like, and it's a two-way street. Like, they can end me at any time and I can walk away from this anytime. But thankfully, I love the fact that I've been fortunate enough to be in a position where I get to build out teams and help grow people's careers. And when I find ways to inject some of that, like not counterculture, but just creative projects that probably maybe weren't on the roadmap where others were thinking, and being able to continue to still introduce new ways of thinking about it. And it's just through maturity as well, like understanding marketing and design in a way that probably I certainly didn't years ago is part of why I feel like I'm probably the strongest I've ever been in my career is right now. And I'm just feeling really confident in my skills, and both as like a creative leader of teams, but also as someone who can get in there and get their hands dirty. And, I'm in the field a lot, just like meeting with our customers, designing campaigns, pitch hitting if I need to throw copy or design or whatever it might be. I love that. I love getting down in there and getting, it's that grittiness, right? That I know you've got it inside of you big time. And so it's fun, right? It's super fun.
Give me the best day in life at Square for you. Like you could mix and match, but like the perfect day for you, you can even pick what day it is. And no, it can't be Saturday, but like, like during the week, like what's like the perfect, okay, I'd be with the client, with people, just run me through what it would look like.
Yeah. I mean, look, I'm in a shit ton of meetings often, so that's not fun, but the best times are a couple of things. One is throughout the year, there are moments when I get to work my ass off in trying to promote someone on my team from a career growth development standpoint. And dude, that is probably, as a manager, no better feeling than helping someone like realize that they've earned it and be the cheerleader for them to help push that through at a company. There's compensation implications on that. There's, yes, you get to update your LinkedIn, but there's a lot more behind that, right? And when you realize that, that's where I think a lot of people get pushed into management. Not me, man. I embrace it. Like, I love getting that privilege to be able to work towards that. So for me, the best days, they're scattered throughout the year when those moments happen, when we push hard and work our asses off to get someone the recognition they deserve. That's one. And then the other, I would like two other ones. One other one is, being out in the field and talking to our sellers, man. Just like, you got to dog food your products, and you got to, like, if you don't, I don't know why you're here, like you got to be obsessed about being an expert on your products and being an expert about your audience. And I always tell my team, I want us to know our customers better than anyone. That's our differentiator. Everyone can make a product, and there's lots of great products that are similar to Square in the field as well. But for us, it's about like our obsession, and mine personally, just with our sellers and like their, understanding them, their challenges. Like I go in there and it's not like, hey, tell us all the great things. No, it's like, what do we do? Tell us all the shit that you hate about what we've done. Like, what's keeping you up at night? Or let's just talk about your business. Let me understand it more. Those are the best moments, man. Those are the best days. And I try and do that as often as I can. And the last one I'll say is this year, we knew The Bear was coming out with their new season. And Monina, who's an amazing associate creative director, who's now been promoted to creative director on my team, she lives in just outside of Chicago. And she was like, hey, there's a billboard above Mr. Beef in the actual restaurant where they filmed the show in Chicago. What if we try and get our marketing team to do the media buy? And once a year, Chicago plays host to the world's largest hospitality food service conference. It's a big trade show, thousands of people. So we convinced them to buy the billboard. We designed it, just literally the 2 or 3 of us, Shauna, Monina, and myself, literally just a team of 3, which is typically what like a big agency would be hired to do. We're doing with a team of 3 in-house. So props to all the in-house teams in there who do their own creative. And we bought up and designed these billboards, and it just got tons of great organic visibility and growth. And it was just one of the most rewarding parts of my job. So getting to do the creative, getting to focus on people, and getting to connect with our customers. Those 3 things, man, nothing better.
Where do you see courage right now when you think about both for you, like what still terrifies you, if anything? We always say fear and courage are kin. Like you actually can't get to the courageous move without really living in the fear a little bit. But then also maybe the company is like, there a moment where like the company feels a little terrified. A lot of change out there in the world, but curious to hear those 2 answers.
Being vulnerable for a second here. Yeah. I mean, a lot worries me. I mean, the global, cultural implications of what's going on in the world right now is super scary. Being a dad, and a parent right now is both like the most rewarding and terrifying thing. And then just the market right now and where you sit in it with the company or, that provides you an income and helps you pay the bills. All of those things are top of mind for me. And as someone who's also in a role that has to, be a leader on a team, it's responsible for others. I'm trying to also be mindful of like what everyone else is going through. And man, it's a harsh reality when like everyone's got, different set of circumstances, different set of responsibilities. So it's really hard in some respect being a lead on a team at a company these days. And when the market's so challenging, you got a lot of people out of work or probably wanting to leave maybe where they're at, but they can't because of the market conditions of where they are. And so you talk about courage, man. Like I think it takes a lot of courage just to show up every day in this climate, and like how insane and misinformation, just like so much, right, hitting you at one time. But I try and just focus on like, acknowledging that, being open about acknowledging that with my team, being vulnerable with my communication at times as well. And also just like finding those pockets of inspiration. Like I still do, right? Like still find like, oh man, I'll see a great ad or a great, podcast or, just a design. Even it could be like, even like a typography used on something, or it's just like, or it could be color. And now as a parent, it's something often that's like your kids are doing, and that's just like, oh man, it kind of takes you away gets you out of that bubble a little bit, which you need. Right. And I think that's where finding the courage to just like show up and remind yourself, like, it's, just keep doing the best you can. It's going to be okay. And like, we're just going to keep fighting through this.
Do you carve out like any time on your calendar? And by the way, this is a really selfish question because I'm looking at it from my, like I'm pretty good at carving out moment pockets on my calendar for writing now. And I've always enjoyed writing because it helps me stay clear, and you're building that muscle. But I've been less successful at carving out time to just be curious and scrape the internet or a magazine for creativity. Like you said, Barnes and Noble is not far away, right? I could carve out some time, get in there and just walk and read. Are you good at that? Like, are you good at setting aside time to just let your brain play?
Absolutely. That's something I think, the mediums have shifted, so I'm no longer going to a brick and mortar often, but it's mostly all done through, digital channels. But yeah, I'm every single day I am absorbed inside, various different mediums, from whether it's physical books to digital books to podcasts to tons of social media, just like folks that I follow in Threads or Instagram or wherever, or LinkedIn, getting articles shared with one another, sharing, one way coming in, going out with others. But yeah, I definitely, I hear a lot of folks talk about, you should never be, the last thing you do before bed should never be on your phone. And it's you're probably right, but I love it. I fucking love it, man. That's where I'm I go to bed. Right before I go to bed, I'm flowing with inspiring. I'm often leaving myself notes in my digital folders, right? Constantly. It's sort of that the new version of that whiteboard, or an episode of Homeland. You ever watch where they have solve the mystery with all the Post-its and the lines and the threads? That's where my brain is. And man, I love those moments of stimulation, and it could come from various industries too. Super inspired by what's happening in the WNBA with this massive movement happening in women's sports, from soccer to hockey to basketball, and and there's so much a coach could give an inspiring talk, or and then there's obviously the traditional advertising, marketing, and seeing what are agencies doing today, how are they navigating or consolidating, or what independent shops are popping up and what are they doing, and it's just really exciting. And for me, the last 4 or 5 years at Square have gotten me just so deep immersed into the food and hospitality space in a way I hadn't been before. I think everyone has a relationship with food and community restaurants, but I've gotten so deep, and it's just been so rewarding. And so that to me feels in the same way I used to do that with music back in the holiday matinee days when I was younger, I feel I'm resurrecting sort of that passion, and now focusing it into this it's marketing and tech, but in a world of hospitality. And it's really exciting to be immersed in something like that that's evolving in front of your eyes.
All right, this is a new segment that I'm making up on the spot called I Got a Guy. I got a guy for that, right? It could be I got a girl for that too, just to be clear, right? But you're going to be the first one on I Got a Guy for that. So all I want to do is ask you, hey, I got a guy for that. There's a restaurant in New York City that you should absolutely try that no one really knows about. Where are you sending me?
I got a guy for that.
All right, well, where are we going?
Oh man, it depends what kind of night we want. I'm really loving the pizza resurrection or just renaissance that's happening in New York City right now. Again, pizza in New York's always been a staple, right? But
totally.
But these last few years, man, it's been really taken off, where there's this modern wave of pizza makers and entrepreneurs that are starting up. And Lucia Pizzeria in Brooklyn and in the corner and also in Soho is just phenomenal. And Lindustry, the West Village has just got so many great things. And if we're going to have a sit down pie kind of night,
yeah,
nothing better than Ruby Rosa in Nolita. And we're going to get the vodka pie, or maybe even a tie-dye pie with a little pesto swirl around that. And it's just delicious.
Made my whole day. This makes my whole day, because New York doesn't stop, but in my head, I've got my staples, right? It's hard not to go John's on Bleecker, right? For all the reasons that
Classic.
right?
Classic. John's is great. Don't you dare go in there asking for a slice. They'll beat you up. So if it's a pie only shop. But, John's is that more sweet tomato sauce, right? Really sweet, which is delicious. And they make a perfect pie every time. Classic New York, old school, And, you know, like you can imagine if you haven't been to John's, someone listening, this is the kind of place. It's got that mafioso sort of vibe. It's got like 1,000 picture frames all over the walls of every famous person from like the 70s up in New York that's visited. And just down the street, if you want slices, you go to Joe's, right? It's controversial pick perhaps, but for me, I love just getting a slice and sitting across the street in the park, eating it with one of those bottled Mexican Cokes and just people watching. And it's just awesome. I was there last week and I happened to get shit on by a pigeon. And I thought, you know what? Nothing better. This is
perfect.
This is New York City.
And by the way, that 15 minutes is like classic 15 minutes, other than the shitting part. But like the rest of it, I'm sure you felt the optimist in you was like, this has got to be good luck. All right, I got a guy for that. So you talked about your process for staying inspired and creative, and sometimes it's threads, and sometimes maybe you're going to some website. Give us somewhere to go for inspiration that just inspires you.
New Orleans. I love New Orleans, man. It's a space I can't go to for too long. So like I recommend it for maybe 48 hours. But yeah, I took my team there actually on an offsite last year, and I wanted them to experience sort of a little bit of taste of what I had experienced luckily several times, from the food, the diversity of music and culture and color and architecture. It's just you almost don't even remember that you're in the United States. So there's just something really inspiring about being there and walking around. And I'm not talking about the quarter, the French Quarter. I'm talking about getting out and around outside of those areas and really immersing yourself. That's amazing. I absolutely love it. And New York City, you know, like I love San Diego. San Diego is like a second home to me, but at the same time, like New York City is, you know, where I was born in Queens. And I think everyone should live in New York at some point in their life. It may not be for everyone. That's okay. I was in New York City yesterday, just walking around and, you know, I was actually by Madison Square Garden and 33rd Street. And there's just like these billboards everywhere. And like, it's just something in the air that's just infectious and inspiring. What about you? What's your answer to that?
I mean, well, to me, I wasn't very clear with my question. So, but I love where you went. I want to build on it. I meant like if you have 15 minutes online and you want to be inspired, like what website are you going to, like that you're like, or who are you following, or what other podcasts are you listening to that you're like, when I need that little burst of inspiration now. But while you're thinking of that answer, New Orleans. The only word I can use that will do it any service is flavor. It is by far, it has the most flavor of, I'm not just talking food, I'm talking culture. Like you walk around New Orleans, you can't not feel how much flavor that city has in every direction. And the food obviously is, you know what? The food is so good that I remember being down there at a restaurant called Giacomo's. Do you know this place?
Yeah, absolutely. Of course.
So Giacomo's is the type of place where you put your name in. They're like, all right, now go across the street, go get some oysters over there, go get a drink. We'll come get you when your table's ready. And then you come back to Giacomo's and they have this alligator cheesecake. It's the only place in the world that this could actually happen. And everyone's like, no problem. I'm sitting in the restaurant. They're probably not going to love this part. And a cockroach like lands on the table. And like, I'm with like a bunch of my buddies, guys. And we're like, yes, this is the smartest cockroach on the planet. If I was a cockroach, this is exactly the table I would want to be at eating this alligator cheesecake. It is that good. Nobody was fazed by this, by the way, at all. And it's like, we moved on with life. And by the way, I should probably take this part out because Giacomo's is so good, let alone the fact that it's a cockroach. I don't want anyone to be like, well, we're not going there now. It is legit. I'm with you on New Orleans. It's a pretty special spot. All right, now.
So like, yeah, I mean, folks that I follow, like I'm a big fan of April Dunford. She's like a really great writer who's written a lot of books that are really inspiring for me, that I always often pull back up around like how to influence and sell and like the right ways of doing, like connecting sales to creative work, which I think a lot of creatives miss the boat on. So I really love like tapping into April Dunford. I'm a big fan of Alex Lau, who's a photographer based out of New York, but he does photography for a lot of like Food and Wine and Bon Appetit, and we hire him quite a bit, like just an amazing artist. And then my kids love Zach King. They're huge Zach King fans on Instagram. And so we watch a lot of that, and I just love what he does with like playful motion and editing, magic, sorcery, I guess. So those are a few.
All right, man. Well, I kind of love that you touched on this, that, your title is Vice President of Creative, but really it's kind of Vice President of Creative Business. I mean, it's both now. And I had I remember an early boss saying to me, you're not in advertising, you're in creative business. And that always stuck, like it just landed with me. I think most creatives, unfortunately, sometimes they miss the boat on the business side. And I also think on the other side, like, look, 90% of the time now I'm hired through Courageous. It's like to remind business people the power of creativity and what it could do, not just making people feel good, but for like the bottom line of the company. So
Absolutely.
You're seeing the same things I'm seeing.
Oh, absolutely. And I think we're going to start seeing more of that, right? Like folks like you helping executives see the light is certainly helps make my job easier. But at the same time, on the flip side, it took me a long time to come to those realizations and learn that playbook as well, where I think a lot of times still today, you see a lot of designers and creatives that just fall victim to really only focusing on the craft. And that is important without a doubt, right? You need to be really good at what you do, especially in a world where it's a lot of sea of sameness. It's good to stand out and think about differentiation, but the craft only gets you so far. I think the real magic happens when you're able to connect the creative that you do with the business objectives and the business goals. And part of that is understanding how to speak the language on the business side. So find out who your decision makers are, understand the language they use, learn it, and then be able to figure out techniques that help you influence and sell your ideas using those language and those techniques, and understand learn the rules of engagement, man. Know the assignment. And so know what matters to, the business. If you're able to connect the creative to the business, dude, it's phenomenal. Like, not to like toot my horn, but like every Square shareholder report in the last like 4 quarters all reference the work coming out of my team. It's a testament to my team, not just me, but like, we're really trying to focus on not just making creative for creative's sake. We're really trying to connect those dots, that the work we do has full visibility and connecting the dots to the business objectives, which are tied to helping our sellers, and like showing that and actually helping creatives and designers and writers on my team see that. Like when you're a creative and you get to see and understand that your work has meaning, rather than, oh, I just made this thing, I don't know how it's doing, like, that's terrible, right? Like, you want to know that like the thing you made is actually impacting the business, the customer, the end user, whatever it might be. There's that. Once you hit that level, sky's the limit with what you can do, and you're going to go places.
I mean, not a surprise that we're kind of here at the end, and it was like a blink. It was like, you're at Ithaca for 4 years. It was cold as shit. You got through it, and like, bam, and now we're on with the rest of our lives here. I always love to end, Dave, with like, if someone's still listening, they're clearly invested in this convo, and I'd love to ask you to bring out that inner teacher, Dave Brown. What's the best way? What do you want to leave everybody with? What's the right sort of note that we should end on from your lens?
Whew, man, that's a great question, Ryan. I think part of me just wants to like start rattling off a bunch of, pizza places. Let's be real. That's where, or like, you and I are going to go get sushi in San Diego for sure. It's in those moments. I guess I'll leave people with this, which is like, I've been to a lot of conferences in my tenure of different places that I've worked on and stuff. And I love going to those, but I'll say this, and hopefully folks listening get this analogy. It's like, the best thing that happens at a conference is often not what's on stage. It's the conversations that happen off stage. So I'll just leave it at that, and encourage folks to seek out those conversations and engage in those.
This was very Bourdain of you. I could see you. I could see a Bourdain, like, you know what? Next time I come to the city, can we do a Bourdain night where maybe a pigeon shits on both of us, but we're having great pizza along the way? Can we do that, please?
Yeah, for sure. I would love to host you, man, in New York anytime.
All right. And I will go total tree trust fall on, like, we could do a pizza crawl. You decide where we go. Dave Brown, man, great to see you, man. Keep doing what you're doing.
All right, Ryan. Thanks so much.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Courageous Podcast. If you enjoy the show, don't forget to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts so more people can find us. See you again next week.